50% बुक पढाउँछ भने 50% वर्कबुक पढाउँछ क्लास 12 मा चाहिँ धेरै एक्सरसाइज वर्कबुकको छ अलराइट सो वर्कबुकलाई पनि इक्वल इम्पोर्टेन्स दिने छैन भनेर प्र्याक्टिस नगर्नेले चाहिँ पछि यु विल फाइन्ड योरसेल्फ इन ट्रबल बिकज ग्रामर इज समथिङ द्याट जति राम्ररी गर्यो भने फुल मार्क्स जतिको त्यति आउँछ लिटरेचर यु विल नट गेट फुल मार्क्स एनिवे इजन्ट इट जति राम्रो गर्दा अलिकति आउँछ मार्क्स बट फुल मार्क्स स्कोर गर्ने भनेको इट इज फ्रम ग्रामर सो प्लिज you practice the exercises that are given seriously in your copies and assignments I'll be giving you today अब चाहिँ गरेर submit गर्ने assignments also will be marked and त्यो marks तिमीहरूको टर्मिनलहरुसँग पनि एड भएर रेकर्डमा रहन्छ so seriously try and do the exercises कुनै एक्सरसाइज आइहालेन के गर्न एकदम सकेन भने क्लासको बिगिनिङ र एन्डमा I will be talking to you for 2-3 minutes त्यो बीचमा तिमीहरूले म्याम मलाई यो एक्सरसाइज गर्न अप्ठ्यारो भयो भने या त क्वेशन सेन्ड गर्ने म त्यसलाई डिस्कस क्लासमा गरिदिन्छु अलराइट इज इट क्लियर टिल हियर एभ्रीवन युनिट 2 सम्म एभ्रिथिङ आई हेभ डन म स्लो पनि गइरहेको छु बिकज यु अल आर न्यू अनि हाम्रो अनलाइन क्लासेस पनि न्यू छ भनेर आई जस्ट वेन्ट स्लो बट टुडे आई वान्ट टु स्टार्ट विथ लिटरेचर ओके टुडे those of you who have the book can open the book just the book sir open the book grandmother the first lesson is grandmother okay the first lesson is grandmother okay we are 2-3 minutes into this so I think I better start with the presentation Can you see the slide class? Slide देखिरहेछ एकजनाले भन निङमा Can you see the slide?
Yes ma'am देखिरहेछ
Okay. Okay, shall I start? Yes. Those of you who have the book, please get the book in front of you. If you don't have, take notes in your copy as we go along. So I'll start with the poem, Grandmother, the very first poem from your literature book, Heritage of Words. I had introduced you to the Heritage of Words in the previous class. I told you it has been divided into different units. Among them, the first unit is what? Grandmother. It is based on the theme of love and reminiscence. Love, you understand, reminiscence is remembrance. Reminiscence means remembrance. So this poem's theme is reminiscence, all right? And as the topic suggests, it says grandmother. So what does grandmother mean? Grandmother is your one of the grandparents, isn't it? Little children always have very fond memories of grandparents. Whenever little children have spent some time with their grandparents, they develop very nice qualities of empathy, they develop spirituality, they get to learn a lot of things from their grandparents, which knowingly, unknowingly, they don't get from their parents, because parents are busy making a life, earning money, with so many duties and responsibilities, whereas grandparents, they are like kind of retired, so they have a lot of time to give to their grandchildren, and grandparents also spend a lot of time at home. Grandchildren also, when they are little, they spend a lot of time at home, so they become companions to each other, and they share so many things. They share their happiness, sorrow. Many times we see children are more attached to their grandparents than to their parents also. So this poem, Grandmother, is also, as the topic suggests, it really, the title is justified, because yes, the poem is about grandmother. It is about the poet's grandmother, all right? So here, the poet, what is the name of the poet? Ray Young Bear. So Ray Young Bear, he belongs to the Mesaki tribe. He belongs to a Red Indian tribe of America, the indigenous people of America. So obviously his grandmother will be a grandmother of the Misaki tribe. She will not be like the grandmother of Nepal or what we see in our country. She will be different because her culture is different, her way, her lifestyle is also different. So his grandmother, here we see the grandmother is not the stereotypical grandmother that we find in Nepal. She is a Misaki grandmother. All right, so let us begin the poem. You will find that as we go along, this poem is very different from other poems. All right, there are so many things that are different. So, grandmother, see, it starts like this. If I were to see her shape from a mile away, I would know so quickly that it would be her. See the first line of the poem. Generally, all the poems they follow the rules of grammar, where the poems begin with the capital letter, isn't it? But here we see that this poem starts with a small letter. All the words that are beginning, all the words that begin, all the sentences begin with a small letter, and it begins with a conditional sentence as well. It begins with a conditional sentence. So, if I were to see her shape from a mile away, so even from a mile is more than a kilometer, so quite a distance, okay? So even if he sees her shape from a mile away, from quite a distance, I would know so quickly. That means it doesn't even take time. I would know so quickly that it would be her, the purple scarf, and the plastic shopping bag. So he says here that there are three things that makes him identify his grandmother. First is the shape, another is the purple scarf, another is the plastic shopping bag. These three things are things that he can see. You see in this poem there are so many images, and these images are senses images, images that appeal to the many senses. What are the senses? We have five sense organs: sense of sight, eyes, nose, tongue, isn't it? And then touch, and then hearing, isn't it? Sense of seeing, sense of touching, sense of smelling, sense of taste. So all these senses, here we see different senses. Images are used which appeal to different senses. So the first paragraph says that that it would be her, the purple scarf and the plastic shopping bag. So here we see a lot of things about his grandmother. So it shows that she had a particular shape and she would always have a purple scarf with her and a plastic shopping bag. If you see deeper here, purple scarf and plastic shopping bag could be telling something also. What? Why does she have a purple scarf always? She could have many scarves if she was rich enough. Or purple scarf was her favorite scarf. Still, she would not wear the same scarf every day if she could afford. Another plastic shopping bag is something that comes for free. Alright. If his grandmother worked in an office, even if she was a teacher, she would be carrying a proper bag, alright, which she would have bought. Okay, it could be branded, it could be a normal bag, but plastic shopping bag is something that comes for free. So what you understand here is that this grandmother would carry a plastic shopping bag, means she belonged to a very poor society. She was quite poor. All right. Now, if I felt hands on my head, I would know that those were her hands, warm and damp with the smell of roots. So the next paragraph says that if he felt hands on his head, he would know that those were her hands. What were the qualities of the hands? Warm and damp with the smell of roots. So, does anyone come and bless you on your head? No, not generally. Nobody will come to bless you, isn't it? Someone who really cares for you, someone who loves you, someone who thinks good for you will only bless you on your head. So if he felt hands on his head, he would know that those were her hands. What were the quality of her hands? Warm and damp with the smell of roots. What would his the quality be? Warm and damp with the smell of roots. All right. So these qualities he associates with his grandmother's hands. So what does this warm and damp signify? Warm. Warm means nyano. It is not hot. Hot means tato. Okay. So warm. People always love warm. People do not like hot things. Okay. Warmth. Maya nyano. Another because she loved him. And another thing, it could be she would be working, so she would be doing some exercise, hence her hands would be warm. All right. Damp means aleli bhijeko. So maybe she would just wash her hands and come. So with the smell of roots, this has a stronger meaning. Why smell of fruits? Because his grandmother would be working in the fields. Maybe she belonged to an agricultural community, but if she does, we don't see that she's saying anything wrong about it. She's very hardworking. You can see that she has been working despite of her old age. She has been working in the field, so she belongs to an agricultural community. And so what she does is her hands, what are the qualities? Warm and damp with the smell of food. So here also these images appeal to different senses. Warm and damp, how do we know? We know by the touch. So warm and damp appeal to our sense of touch. Smell of roots appeal to our sense of smell. All right. Now then the other paragraph, the last paragraph says that it is together, however. So if I heard a voice coming from a rock, I would know, and her words would flow inside me. So if I heard a voice coming from a rock, do we really hear a voice coming from a rock? Never, isn't it? Rock is an object without life, isn't it? So an abstract object. So how will a voice come from there? Never. But this is symbolical of something else. A rock here signifies the grave. A rock here signifies the grave. Whose grave? Grandmother's grave. Now that his grandmother is dead and gone, he is so attached to his grandmother that what happens is whenever he feels sad, whenever he feels low, whenever he has to face any failure in his life, he goes to his grandmother's grave. And there he would imagine that his grandmother is talking to him, is giving him some advice, and those words would flow inside him. All right, would inspire him like the light of someone stirring ashes from a sleeping fire at night. Someone stirring ashes from a sleeping fire at night. If you all have seen people making fire, so after the wood is burned, there are ashes, kharani huncha. So those ashes, some light is there. Even dying fire has some light inside. That means even when we are frustrated, we are at the root of everything. We have very much faced so much failure in life. Still there, we have the ember in us. फेरि जाग्दै हामीमा केही न केही हुन्छ. So same way, his grandmother's words would act like someone stirring, halaunu, chalaunu, ashes from a sleeping fire, निप्न लागेको आगोबाट, and to rekindle it again. So when he is frustrated, when he is down, when he is about to give up in life, he remembers the inspiring words of his grandmother, and they would inspire him to move ahead in life. Okay. So basically, at this level, the poem is about his grandmother. Okay, the poet is so closely related, associated with his grandmother, that her image is evergreen and fresh in his mind. If he saw her from a far distance also, he would instantly recognize her because of her purple scarf, her plastic shopping bag in her hands. He says that he can recognize her, that her touch, because it would be warm and damp with the smell of fruits. This indicates the poet's poor financial condition, which made the grandmother work in the field despite her old age. All right. If he heard a voice coming from a rock, he would immediately know that it was her voice. It would blow inside him like the light and warmth of someone stirring fire at night. These words of his grandmother would inspire him, and they would activate his inner feeling and inspire him to move ahead in life. So this shows that throughout his life he has been very close to his grandmother. Now that his grandmother is dead and gone, still he says that even from afar away he can recognize her. What are the things that he remembers about his grandmother? Her shape, purple scarf, and the plastic shopping bag. After that, he says that if someone touches on his head, he would know that those were her hands. They were warm and damp with the smell of roots. These images appeal to our sense of touch and sense of smell. So, smell of roots, damp, warm hand also suggests the work culture of his grandmother, the poverty of his grandmother, and even in her old age, she would be working in the field. Finally, when he says a voice coming from a rock, it shows that how inspiring, how the morality, how the advice that his grandmother would give him would help him move ahead in life whenever he faced failure or frustration. So, and that would work as someone stirring ashes from a sleeping fire at night. That means whenever he's again down with everything, the words of his grandmother would inspire him to move ahead in life. Okay, this poem, Grandmother, is a modern poem composed by an American Indian poet. You have to know the background of the poet, American Indian poet Ray Young there. Okay, here he has recollected or remembered his past days he had spent with his grandmother, who is no more in this world now. The poet has drawn a picture of his grandmother, which is a typical of the Misaki grandmother, as all inspiring and all loving. It appeals to different senses. Here he says that he was so close to her that he could recognize her even from far away, and then her purple scarf and the plastic shopping bag. So even without seeing, he could recognize her hands because they were warm and damp and with the smell of roots. He says that he could hear a voice coming from a rock. The voice would be actually coming from the grave, and this would work like someone stirring ashes and the light of sleeping fire being stirred. These words were full of inspiration for him, and it would inspire him to fulfill his duty to move ahead in life. In order to make this clear, he has used different various images. You saw that these are there, and then we see the activities of poor farmers here. What you see is that image of someone stirring from a fire, sleeping fire at night. So this you will not see in the town. Only in village generally people make fire that way from wood, and then from the ashes they again rekindle the fire. Maybe the poet as a little boy, he used to see his grandmother doing this, so that image is there in his mind. So he is expressing the same thing in the poem as an example. Okay. So his grandmother, her activities relating to agriculture, her inspiration, her words, her lifestyle, everything is shown in this poem. Now, when we move further, we talk about the theme of the poem. What is the theme of the poem? Okay, the theme here is basically, when we talk about a theme is the subject of a piece of writing. A poem also has a theme, a story has a theme. Whatever you talk about, there should be a certain theme. So here there are two themes, one at a surface level, one at a deeper level. At a surface level, the theme is reminiscence. Reminiscence is, please mute yourself, someone has unmute, there is a disturbance. Yes, Ray Young bears love for and fond memories of his grandmother or recollection, remembrances. Then, at a deeper level, it is a search for identity or the native Indian search for identity. Then, um, who are native Indians? They are Red Indians or the natives of America. And the poet himself is a member of the Misaki tribe that is mentioned already in the introduction to the poem. To know this, the second part, that is to go to the deeper meaning of the poem, you as students of class 12 are expected to do a bit of research. Alikiti research गर्ने के को बारेमा search about indigenous people. If you all follow Xavier International को page follow गर्छौ भने in Facebook, August 9th मा you must have seen, August 9th को तिमीले एउटा post हेर. It is the day of the indigenous people. Who are indigenous people? Indigenous people are people of the land. त्यहाँको ट्राइबलहरु जुन ठाउँको ट्राइबल. So these people, the poet Ray Young Bear, he belonged to the Misaki tribe or he belonged to the Red Indian tribe. He was a native of America, and this poem reflects his search for identity. So generally, as it is said, this principal theme of his poems is generally the contemporary American Indian search for identity. Why does he have to search for identity? We will discuss this. later in other slides. Okay. Now let us come to the tone of the poem. What is the tone? Tone is the author's attitude towards the subject matter. Okay. Whenever, sometimes in class when we talk to you, we ask you to do something, you do it happily, where your tone is not bad. At other times when we ask you something, you say something but banging your feet and with a very disrespectful tone also you talk to your teacher, isn't it? At that time, how do we say, is this the tone you talk to your teacher? We say, isn't it? It's just from the way you are talking also we come to know your tone. So there is a difference in the way you express. Sometimes the tone expresses your attitude towards the subject matter. All right. So your tone reflects the attitude towards the subject matter. So what is the tone here? The tone is nostalgic. What does nostalgia mean? Search for the meaning of nostalgia. You must have heard the word nostalgia before. Nostalgia means yearning for the past, means when you wish to go back to the past. Sometimes what happens, if you have grown up in a certain kind of environment today, when that you are grown up, you see a picture which is related to that background where you have grown up. You wish like going back to that place. त्यहाँ जान मन लाग्छ. You want to relive that moment. So yearning, longing to go back to the past is nostalgia. So that is the tone. So what is the theme? The theme is one, at one level it is reminiscence or remembrance. Second one, it is identity, search for identity. And the tone is nostalgic or yearning for the past. Now the structure. What does structure mean? Structure means the way it is presented, the way it is made, the poem, the way it is, the technical aspects of the poem. What is there? There is use of conditional sentence. The sentences begin with small letters as opposed to convention. What is convention? What is convention? Conventional means something that has been happening. That is conventional. Unconventional. Okay. So this poem is unconventional because it starts with a conditional sentence. Generally, poems don't start with a conditional sentence. Okay, sentences beginning with small letters. You saw the whole poem, it started with small letters. Generally, poem, the beginning is always in the capital letter. Okay, use of small I instead of capital. You saw when we write, if I were to see her, that I is generally written in capital, but in this poem, it is in small letter. Then we come to, there are different literary devices used in this poem. What are literary devices? Literary devices are devices used in literature to make the meaning of the writing clear, to make the things more understandable to the reader. Simple example of literary devices, simile. Have you heard about simile? Yes, you have discussed simile in school. Even someone who has not studied good English, basic English also has similes, like as busy as a bee. That is a simile, right? There are others like as fierce as a lion. So she was fierce like a lion. So that is a metaphor. Now here, those are basic literary devices. In this poem, we have different images and symbols. Symbols is, as I told you, rock. Rock here symbolizes the grave, isn't it? And then the word symbolizes the inspiration of his grandmother, the advice of his grandmother. The different images are there which appeal to different senses. As I told you earlier, we have 5 different senses. What are these images? We will discuss more in the next slide, okay? So once again, about the structure. The poem is different in its structural aspect. The way it is presented and the technical aspect of the poem is very different from other poems because it starts with a conditional sentence, if I were to see her from a mile away. It starts with conditional. The sentences all begin in small letters as opposed to convention. The convention is that they all begin with a capital. Instead of capital I, small I is there. And what are the literary devices used here? Different images and symbols are used. Now when we come to images, let us come more detail about the images. Or imagery is the visually descriptive or figurative language. Many times when we read a poem, if we can imagine certain image comes to our mind, that is imagery is being created. Okay, what is the function of that? Many times the authors, the writers use this imagery to create emotion. In writing, actually it serves to deepen the reader's understanding of what is going on and how to feel about something. So here, this kind of thing shows us makes us understand more about how the poet is feeling. So there are different forms of imagery. The visual imagery relates to sight, okay? The shape, plastic shopping bag, purple scarf. Then tactile imagery relates to touch. Olfactory relates to smell. Acoustic imagery relates to hearing. Gustatory imagery relates to taste. We accept the fifth one, the gustatory. We have all the imagery in this poem. There is one question which is generally asked. See, what images do you find in this poem written by the member of the Mesaki Indian tribe of North America? To what senses do these images appeal? So you are supposed to answer this question that yes, different imagery are used to express about his grandmother, isn't it? And then we find different images, they appeal to these are the images and they appeal to these senses. So this is how you will be writing. Okay, then see, what is the next question? How does the speaker feel towards his grandmother? In what words or lines does he make his feeling clear? So after reading the poem, obviously you can know that the poet feels very much attached to his grandmother. He misses his grandmother. He loves his grandmother very much. She is all loving, all inspiring for him. And he feels that even after she is dead and gone, he says that he can feel as if she is there to help him, guide him whenever he is in trouble, isn't it? Now let us come to some points that are important for you from the to understand the poem better. Okay, so from our parents, grandparents, generally, what do we get? We get values, we get norms, we get a lot of wisdom. Grandparents have what is that grandparents have more? They have got experience, and people with experience can always help you, guide you, face different situations. So the wisdom that he got from his grandmother helps to search for identity of Native American people. So the poem here not only expresses his love and respect towards his grandmother, but uses his grandmother as an epitome for Native Americans. So through this poem, he has made the world feel what Misaki grandmothers are like. He has given an image of his Misaki grandmother as all loving, caring, inspiring, isn't it? So after reading the poem, we have a very good image of a grandmother, especially a Misaki grandmother, a grandmother from the Misaki tribe, isn't it? So the poem is rich in the use of symbols and images that brings out a picture of a typical Misaki grandmother. There are a lot of symbols. What is the symbol? The here the rock is symbolical of the grave, and then the voice is symbolical of the guidance of his grandmother, of the wisdom of his grandmother. And there are more, we will discuss more. The grandmother here, she is portrayed as all loving, affectionate, and inspiring. Through the activities we see in the poem, we see that his grandmother is so loving, affectionate, and in the last paragraph, we see that she is inspiring as well. Now, when we talk about Americans, Native Americans are also known as American Indians and Indigenous Americans. As I told you earlier, do little bit of research about Ray Young Bear, okay, about the writer, poet, sorry, his background, okay, and then about Mesaki tribe and their history. There you will know a lot of things about these tribal people and why they feel they should search for identity. Not everyone will go searching for their identity. If they are being suppressed, then only they will search for their identity. All right, so let us go a little bit to the history of these Native Americans. Okay, you all know that America was discovered by Columbus, isn't it? So when Columbus he set out, he had set out to search India. India was नहीं so when he reached there, America, he referred to the people as Indians, believing that he had reached the Indian Ocean. So confusing this. So once he had called them Indians, now they were called Indians, but they were called Red Indians. अब के भए थे Indians भए, but they are Red Indians. Do not confuse that these Indians are people of India, our neighboring country. Some students, what they do when we read this, in the examination, what they write, the poet's grandmother had gone from India to America. So there she was treated like an outsider. Hence, the poet searched for identity. this will be, you'll get a big zero if you write that. So what you understand this much, you pura mention garne. When Columbus reached there, he referred to the people as Indians, believing that he had reached the Indian Ocean. This you will find. You will do a little bit of research about red Indians. You will find. Okay. Here in this poem, he sustains the ethics, the values, and norms of the Misaki tribe. So when he describes the activities of his grandmother, we see different things related to the Misaki tribe. We can feel the rustic scene of American countryside where the tribe resides. So this particular tribes reside in a place called IOWA, Iowa or something. So generally, it has been living there for generations, all right? And it is a rustic countryside. And in the poem, we can feel the images which show the grandmother smell of fruit, so she is related to agriculture, and then the picture of someone stirring ashes from a sleeping fire. These things signify countryside, गाँव को सीप देखाउँछ. Through this poem, the poet implies the rigid suppression to the Mesaki tribe by the white Americans. We see many times, you all must have heard that, they say a pen is mightier than a sword, isn't it? So whatever a person feels deep inside, he will express that in his writing. So through this poem, the poet is expressing his search for identity for his tribe, because the white Americans have been suppressing them. The white Americans have been getting over their identity. They are not letting them have their own identity. So here you will see in this poem, the poet has used different images to cover two intertwined themes. Intertwined means interconnected themes. Okay, the first one being the recollection of his grandmother. First is basic meaning of the poem is poet remembers his grandmother. Whatever he remembers about his grandmother, surface level, that is all. Okay, at one level, but at a deeper level, it is a search for identity. Who search for identity? The Native Americans search for identity. So let me describe more about the symbols here. Okay, the images like the purple scarf, plastic shopping bag, and light appeal to our sense of sight. These images have symbolic link to the Indian culture. So these images are symbolic to the Indian, to the culture of that tribe. The plastic shopping bag indicates the poverty of the tribe. As I told you earlier, if she was rich enough, she would not be carrying the plastic shopping bag which comes for free. The light, this you have to understand more, indicates the spirituality of this culture and guides him. Light always stands for spirituality. Whenever we start any function, first we start with the symbolic lighting of the light. Yes or no? Yes. Isn't it? We celebrate something, we light something, isn't it? We are happy, we go to temple, we light, isn't it, in front of the God. We are sad, we go and light things. So, and light has so much of symbolic importance that light always guides us from darkness to brightness, isn't it? Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya, isn't it? So you can see in the image of our this thing logo also, it is a kind of light, it is spreading, isn't it? Let us spread the light of education, isn't it? So that is what light has so much of importance. The light indicates spirituality of his culture and it guides him. Light is always there to guide you to the right path, isn't it? The images like the smell of fruit appeal to our sense of smell. It indicates the work ethics of his grandmother in his tribe. And then his ancestors, they worked in the fields with pleasure and sense of duty. All right, it shows that his grandmother, even though she was old, she used to work hard in the field. A voice and her words appeal to our sense of hearing. This indicates, so only voice, what is there in a voice? There is teaching in the voice, there is philosophy in the voice, and generally what does she teach? She teaches about her culture and about her philosophy, and that enlightenment is specific. The use of different images, the lost culture of the Indian tribe. So mother, as it is, mother stands for land, mother stands for earth, mother stands for our root, isn't it? So grandmother obviously stands symbolically, represents his lost culture, his background of the poem. Okay, so here what we see here is actually about his grandmother. Why identity crisis? You can see here the grandmother of the poet here. If you do a bit of research, you will find that Rayong Bear's grandfather, great grandfather, these people have been freedom fighters. They have been fighting for the rights of the Mesaki people. So that is there in his blood as well. So whenever he writes something, the main theme of his writing is the identity crisis, search for identity of this Native American people. Okay, and his grandmother also, she was one of the prominent and highly regarded women of the contemporary America who related the difficulties in the Mesaki tribe. So by showing the depicting the life of his grandmother, he's trying to show how the women of that time suffered. Okay, through this poem, the poet implies the rigid suppression to the Mesaki tribe by the Americans, how the white Americans especially tried to suppress the Americans. In spite of the contempt, in spite of the discrimination, the tribe strongly existed in the American states. The poet here, he wants to show the ethics, the culture, the value of the tribe. It also shows how difficult it was for a Misaki grandmother, how women in that tribe had to face great struggle to sustain their life. Another thing that he has shown here is the how people in that tribe lived, how their life was there, how they felt they worked hard to make their both ends meet. All right, so these things are there in the poem which show about his grandmother. Now, what is here? There is, we have, once again, I'll just go to the surface meaning of the poem. He says that if he were to see his grandmother from far away also, he would recognize her because of her shape, a plastic shopping bag, and the purple scarf. You remember this. Then if he felt hands on his head, he would know that those were her hands. What are the qualities? Warm and damp with the smell of fruits. So it appeals to the sense of touch and the smell of sense of smell. It shows the work culture of his grandmother. That is, it belonged to the agricultural community. They worked closely with nature. They worked happily. They were hardworking by nature. The final paragraph shows that the importance of his grandmother in his life because she was a source of inspiration for him. It shows that now that she is dead and gone, still he remembers his grandmother so much that whenever he feels lonely, he feels sad, he feels that he is facing a certain kind of laid backness or something that he has failed in life, he goes to her grave and there he feels as if a voice is coming from a rock and those words would flow inside him like the light of someone stirring ashes from a sleeping fire at night. Okay, so this is all about the poem. Now, what is the theme? Theme, as I said, is the subject of a piece of writing. There are two themes in this poem. One is the recollection or reminiscence or remembrance of his grandmother. However, the second theme is more important for you because it is something new. You all have been reading a poem at surface level. You all are not used to reading it at a deeper level, but here you have to go to the deeper level and understand it at a deeper level and interpret it. For that, you have to do a bit of research. So, who's search for identity? Native Indians search for identity. Who is a native Indian? A red Indian is a native Indian or they are natives of America. And this poet is a member of the Misaki tribe. What is the tone? Every writing has a certain tone. That is the attitude towards the subject matter. Here, the tone is nostalgic, means he wants to go back to the past, longing to go back to the past. And what is in the structure of the poem? There are different things. How the poem is presented. It begins with a conditional sentence. Another, it does not have capital letters like in other poems. It begins with a small letter. This is different than the convention. Use of small I instead of capital, and different literary devices are used, like there are different images and symbols. The images especially, they appeal to different senses as we will be discussing in the next slide. What is there? Images means these are visually descriptive or figurative language. That means whenever we read a poem, we close our eyes, certain image comes to our mind, that is imagery, and it helps in understanding the writing better, to feel something better. So visual imagery is there. Yes, in this poem there is this, there are different visual imagery, the light, the plastic shopping bag, the scarf, and the shape. Tactile imagery, sense of touch is there. We have warm and damp. Olfactory, smell of roots, sense of smell. Acoustic, when he hears the grandmother's voice. Now, these three slides, I've given you more information about the Native American search for his grandmother. So, what he got from his grandmother, he got love, encouragement, and wisdom. So, not only here he expresses his love, but he also shows how the Native American grandmothers were. He uses different symbols and images to bring a picture of a typical Mesaki grandmother. His grandmother is portrayed as all loving, affectionate, and inspiring, isn't it? Then little bit about Americans. Native Americans, also known as American Indians, were the indigenous Americans. How they were called in Red Indians, or because when Columbus reached there, he called them Indians, mistakenly thinking that he had reached the Indian Ocean, but actually he had reached America. So that Indian name remained with them, and they are called Red Indians. Okay. He sustains the ethics, values, and norms. In the poem, he tries to show the values of the Mesaki tribe. And we can see picture of the American countryside in the poem, where especially the smell of fruit, the warm and damp hands, and then we can see the stirring of ashes at night. So here, in this poem, we can see how the Mesaki people have been discriminated, suppressed by the white people. That is why they want to get over it and search for their identity. So the two intertwined themes are one, recollection of his grandmother, another is search for identity. So these images are there. They have a symbolic link to the Indian culture, the way his grandmother dressed or what she carried, and the light especially. So the bag indicates the poverty, the light indicates the spirituality. Don't forget this. Light always indicates spirituality. Smell indicates the work ethics, because what she was working with, that smell she carries with her. A voice indicates the teachings, the wisdom, the philosophy of the Indian culture. And then because of all these things, which it enlightens his spirit. So by using all these things symbolically, the poet has linked his grandmother to the lost culture of the Indian tribes. So all these things he has been talking about through the image of his grandmother. So this is all we have in our today's class. Let me see how much you have got through it. Yes. Vijay Silwal. Vijay Silwal. Vijay Silwal. Unmute yourself. He's not there in the class, I think. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Today what you will do is, you will do a bit of research about what? About the writer, the poet named Riyang Bear. Do a bit of research about Mesaki tribe, Native Americans or Red Indians, and then find about 9th August, as I told you, was the day for the indigenous people. Who are indigenous people? So you can just find the meaning of the native word, native, indigenous, and then nostalgia, and find meanings to these words, and then at least 5 different things related to this. And tomorrow, when we begin the class, once we will be discussing this poem, and only when this is clear to you, we will go forward with the other one, that is with our meaning into words. Okay? Have you understood the poem or not, class? Yes? Is there anything you want more? Okay, BJ Silval, you could not get me what? Who couldn't you get? You did not get the question? Okay. My audio is delaying. Okay. Okay, fine. I'll ask you tomorrow. You prepare and come, okay? Okay, have a good day. I'll give you assignment today, okay?